Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for another very special edition of WOWSA Live. We're actually here with Paul Asmuth, who is a world-renowned dual inductee in the International Marathon Swimming Hall of Fame and the International Swimming Hall of Fame. He has been one of the heroes and inspirational athletes, coaches, and administrators in our sport. And welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here. Good to
Yeah.
see you.
And Paul, this has been a tough year, COVID, and in your part of the world, fires and all kinds of things. Can you tell us a little bit how your home and your experience in the fires, it just wiped out lots of thousands of acres in Northern California?
Yeah, tens of thousands of acres. And I think the biggest heartache here and heartbreak has been our home ended up being safe, but the fire burned up to two sides of our home. And that was really, we are so grateful for the firefighter heroes that saved our house. They saved it in the end with our hoses, our garden hoses, because we had worked very hard to create the defensible space around our house.
Wow.
When we removed a lot of debris this last year, for weeks we had people working, clearing the forest, cleaning out dead wood, and the firefighters said that that saved our house and probably some of our neighbors' homes. But three homes on our street did burn down. Very sad, and even sadder was the Meadowood Resort right below our home and part of where I work. It received major damage and lost the clubhouse and many units and has had to close. And that means that over 500 people lost their job.
Uh,
So that has been been tough on our county,
yeah.
and some of Sonoma County as well. But we had over 200 commercial businesses burn, as well as I think over 500 homes. So it really was uh, it's been a tough season. And then with the pandemic, the resort had been shut down for 3 months, and all winery tasting rooms were shut down until just recently. So it's been a Napa County and the wine country has had a little rough time here this year.
Yeah. And for those listeners who aren't familiar with Northern California and Napa, uh, you know, in particular, can you describe where you are relative, let's say, to San Francisco or Los
Yes,
Angeles?
absolutely. We are about 60 miles north of the city of San Francisco. You go across the Golden Gate Bridge and drive about another hour, and you're right in Napa.
Yeah.
Beautiful Napa Valley. Come and visit.
Yeah.
We
And
need.
how long have you been there, Paul?
Uh, I moved here in 1993.
Okay. So your roots go deep, literally. In the,
We have a lot of very special relationships here. Many friendships, and it's been my favorite place I've ever lived. I lived in Florida and Alabama and Southern California and San Francisco, San Jose, and Santa Rosa. But this has been really my favorite place by far.
yeah. I mean, it's renowned. What makes it special? That the community of people, the
Yeah, the community of people,
Mhm.
definitely. I mean, we enjoy the beauty, and we get all four seasons here, which is we love. No real snow, but it's cold enough the winter to you want to come home and sit around the fire.
Mhm.
But it's we really do enjoy all four seasons. Yet the weather's good enough you can still be outdoors and doing stuff most of the seasons. It's hot here in the summer, but the mornings are nice and cool, so you can still get up and exercise or swim or whatever you want to do year round, pretty much. But what really makes it special is the community, the friendship.
Uh,
The wine industry is a very generous, giving community. Every year they give about $8 million to the local nonprofit agencies through a big fundraiser they have known as Auction Napa Valley,
uh-huh.
and it's an amazing place to live, and very generous people here, and we have our church where we have a real sense of community and
Uh-huh.
love, and we were married there and been going there, I think attending there since around 94 95.
Okay. Okay. And do you still swim, Paul?
Not
Not
right
like you did
now. The
before, I know.
pool is closed. My pool is closed.
Okay.
Usually I swim at Meadowood the pool, and and I haven't been swimming in the last about a month now. When the
Okay.
fires were at the end of September, There is a good master's program here. I don't enjoy the 5:30 a.m. time slot.
You got enough of that.
Yeah, so I haven't. I think I'm gonna end up back over there though pretty
Uh,
soon. I've been going to the gym though and staying physically fit. I just haven't been able to get in the water.
Got it. I never forget that workout you told me when you went about 20,000 meters at Mission Viejo,
Yeah,
which was Mark Schubert.
yeah.
And you had to end with 10, was it 10?
1075s. Yeah, we did 1075s on a minute. No,
No,
1075s on
45
45
seconds.
seconds. On 45 seconds. Yeah.
And
And
he
we
was,
couldn't get out unless we made all 10. And it was Ed Ryder and myself. And we kept missing and missing. Ed, and finally, I don't, unlike the fourth try, we both made it somehow. We swam about 23,000 yards that day.
uh,
It was, we did 20,000 regularly. That was kind of the normal. But that day was extra special.
yeah. Now, when you finished that set, was there, obviously there was relief, but did you realize that you had another gear in you?
Yeah, I think so. And I recognize that I could do more than I thought I could do. And I also Mark Schubert later told me that he knew that I could, and that really he was glad he challenged me in that way. And then that I finally was learning more about myself, that I could take it to another level when I really had to.
Yeah. And learning about yourself, you recently wrote a book, very well received. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's called Marathon Swimming: The Sport of the Soul, and it's a memoir in many ways, and about my swimming journey and also as I wanted to write a thank you to the many coaches that helped me along the way and other people. Started with Ginny Dunkel she was a gold medalist in the 1964 Olympics, and then she showed up when I was 13, and that rocked my world from a little club team to a serious training team. And then Greg Troy, who went on to be the University of Florida's coach until recently, was Ryan Lochte's coach, and is now Caleb Dressel's coach. And a lot of people know Greg, and he's been a many-time Olympic coach. And then Ron Johnson in college at Arizona State, and then Mark Schubert at Mission Viejo. And I trained with Mark from 76 through 85 when he left to move to Florida, and then again in the early 90s in Colorado Springs. So it was also a thank you to those people that helped me along the way, Sam Freeze as well. And it was I really enjoyed the writing process. I would get into my office early in the morning before work and on weekends, and I was spending about 20 to 30 hours a week writing the book. And a good friend of mine, Kim McAlpine, who's an author, said, once you start writing, don't stop. And if you miss a day, don't miss 2 days. And he said Ernest Hemingway's goal every day was 500 words. So don't be discouraged, if you have a day where it doesn't really flow. I didn't experience that. I felt that the stories were really flowed easily for me. And I'd been thinking about it, writing a long time. And when Marilyn and I, my wife, were in Italy, in Capri on vacation, I was talking about the book, and she said, well, what would the chapters be? And so I told her right then what the chapters would be, because I had given it so much thought, and those ended up being the chapters in the book. And some of the chapters were fun to write about. Some were very tough to write about, especially the chapter on Fran Crippen and his relationship with Alex Meyer, and that journey together, our journey together. And then some writing about my spiritual experiences were also, they weren't tough to write about, but they were very emotional, became very emotional during that time when I was writing, which surprised me a lot. I enjoyed the writing process. I felt probably the closest to God for such an extended period of time while I was writing. And I remember telling Marilyn one day I was just crying. I couldn't explain it. And she says, what's the matter? I said, I don't know. All I feel is like God is just asking me to keep going.
Wow.
It was really an amazing experience for me.
Yeah. Well, I read the book. I very much enjoyed it. And I can't recall a swimming book, a sports book that had the word soul in its title. So I mean, just the inclusion of the word soul, I mean, meant that you were going deep. And
Yeah, I felt that when I was writing, and I think that our sport, the sport of marathon swimming, especially when you're out in the water for so much time, sometimes alone, especially back then. We weren't swimming in packs so much back then, and it wasn't as crowded as today. As 10Ks or 5Ks. There was maybe 30 to 40 people in the race, and then we'll get stretched out, and it really was just you in the boat next to you. And yeah, sometimes you were swimming by yourself on a course or with some other people, but in general, there was a lot more. For me, I like to train alone back then, and I wouldn't encourage people to do that today. But I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed the quiet. It was just like it's you and the water and your soul. I mean, that was originally. I wrote an article for a master swimming magazine and I called it "The Sport of the Soul," open water swimming, the sport of the soul. And I feel like that. I described that in the book as when you lose all of your sense of sight and smell and hearing and touch and taste, and so you learn just who you are. You're basically it's just you, and I feel like that's your soul. And I feel that oftentimes, I just felt it was God carrying me along the way. And when I couldn't do it myself, that God was there. And I always feel that God doesn't give us any challenges that He won't also give us the resources to overcome. So I feel that's always really worked well in my life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I enjoyed it very much. I raced against you. I had the privilege of racing against you. I certainly had the privilege to follow your feet. Sometimes close, most of the time very far. And it was really cool reading that book because I'd never seen that side of you. Obviously, you didn't share it with, let's say, your fellow competitors, but when you put it in a form, certainly for me, it felt like, oh, that's a side of Paul I didn't know. And I felt, I honestly felt, God, what a great friend. I was like, oh, now, like, I wish you had written the book before you started your career.
For me, I wasn't as friendly on the competitive, circuit, going to place as some of the other swimmers were, because I felt like I had a hard time making that distinction of leaving the competitive arena and then being really friendly with somebody, in the end, get back into the competitive arena and want to beat that person. So I had at that age, especially in my 20s and 30s, a more difficult time with that. Now, I didn't coach that when I was helping the USA Swimming, when I was coaching. I taught, the fiercest in the water, the friendliest on the beach. And it's easier said than done sometimes. But I was mostly referring to the friendliest on the beach, not just the competitors, but to all the other people in the organizations around you. All the volunteers, the people at the hotel, all the support people that make it happen. And so that was I had a harder time living that when I was really trying to make the money to pay for my airfare home.
Yeah. Yeah, hitchhiking from back to California from Atlantic City would have been a chore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, one of the things that certainly in the swimming world doesn't talk about a lot, but something that really resonated with me, I was observing a swim by Stephen Redmond, and he was the first person who did the Ocean 7. And before he dove into the channel, he got down on his knees and he prayed. Now, sometimes I watch the Olympics and I see someone bless themselves, or I can see someone and they appear to be praying. But in this particular case, I mean, he got down on his knees and he was almost shaking. I mean, it was literally, he was having a very intense conversation with his God, and he was not shy about the people around him. Now, again, we were just in a boat and there was, his crew, but it struck me, and I go, you know what? I've not seen swimmers reach that deeply, but they have to be, because ours is a cerebral sport. You are, as you say, thinking upon yourselves. And, did you yourself reach that deep during some races or some long swims?
Well, I certainly prayed it started with Sam Freeze,
Okay.
my very first race in Atlantic City. And, he just grabbed my hands and we prayed before we started the race. And from then on, I just always prayed with whoever was going to be in my boat that day, or by myself. It was somebody maybe I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
Um, but as far as being that deep, I think for, during the races, I had to rely on God's plan for that day, and for me. And I think that I don't remember during an actual time during a race where I said, "Hey, God, I need you right now,"
Uh-huh.
because I'm not sure that's how God works. I think God has a plan for our lives, and I think He gives us the tools and puts desires in our heart, and then expects us to do the work to get there.
Got it.
And I don't think God cares so much about who wins or loses a race. That I don't see God being in my life that way. I see God being in my life, loving me and wanting me to love Him back, and
Got it.
so loving the people around me. So I
Yeah.
think that's what really matters.
Got it.
I
So,
can't say in
so
my 20s I was that mature.
yeah. So in other words, when you say God gives you the resources, He gives you the desire, the physical ability to go to practice every day, or hit 1075s on 45. That's what you're talking about, the resources, or is there
Yes,
something a little bit
yes. The desires, I think, to follow the desires, I feel God puts the desires in our heart. Um, and then it's up to us to take the steps to achieve them.
Got it.
And, we could have lots of desires in our heart, but if we don't get out of bed and take some steps to do something about it, those desires aren't going to be met. And
Yeah.
so I feel like then we would be falling short of what God would want us to do.
Yeah.
I think everybody is different, whether you're called into ministry or a mission work, or like right now, I've really felt a real passion around this redwood tree project I'm doing for the last 10 years. And, I just feel like, it's taught me many, many things, including patience and trusting, and just that, and just to continue the process of, everything I can to make this project be successful.
And could you explain a little bit of the project? I know behind you, you've got a beautiful shot of, yeah.
Old growth redwood forest in Napa County.
Mhm.
And Napa County isn't many people isn't maybe known for coast redwood trees, but they are one of the oldest living organisms on our planet, over 100 million years old. The genetics they used to grow over most of the world
Okay.
and in North America, and now there's their ranges along the California coast from southern Oregon to southern Monterey County. So, and it's about a 600-mile range, but the width is only about 40 miles, and we're on the eastern edge of the range. And
Got
so,
it.
I've been working on a carbon sequestration project in St. Helena, California, using water from our wastewater treatment plant, our city's wastewater treatment plant, to irrigate and grow a grove of redwood, of coast redwood.
Really?
So we did an experiment first with 450 trees, and now those that were planted in 2012, some are 35 feet tall.
Oh,
Yeah, they grow very fast. They sequester more carbon than any tree in the world. And
okay.
they're one of the oldest living organisms in the world. They have coast redwood trees over 2,000 years old.
Wow.
So so we're working on expanding that forest, adding another 10 acres. We hope another 3,000 trees or so.
Wow. I mean, talk about you're ideally suited for this. A marathon swimmer in a marathon race to help
Yeah.
the climate and the environment.
True. It's, forestry, planting trees is a very long-term horizon. But
Yeah.
once a forest is established, a new ecosystem starts, and it's just amazing to watch that whole like universe of that forest change. I mean, now there's owls roosting in the trees. There's
Yeah.
mammals all over, and there's all kinds of invertebrates underneath the, earthworms now under the ground, and it's just amazing. I mean, it
Yeah.
just comes to life, and what used to be just fallow land is now this. I will call it a vibrant ecosystem because it
Yeah.
is really neat.
Now, when you were competing on the professional circuit, you were also, day job was an accountant. So how
Yeah.
does an accountant become so well versed in forestry and creating new ecosystems?
Yeah, well, my first major in college was wildlife management.
Oh,
So I that was my first. It's always really been my passion, and then I I needed to change majors because it just was too demanding
okay,
of a major. All my labs was in the afternoon during swim practice, so
okay,
I had to change majors. And I talk about that in the book because it was a dramatic change for me.
yeah,
And accounting was the last thing I ever thought I would do or ever wanted to do,
yeah,
and ended up being in public accounting for 18 years, but it ended up being the perfect career for me to do my marathon swimming. So I could be an accountant for 9 months a year, and then for 3 months a year, I could be a professional marathon swimmer, traveling around the world and racing and earning prize money and doing what I really love to do, which was train. So and then I never really lost my love for nature, outdoors, and then I fell in love with coast redwood trees when I moved to Northern California. Well, actually, in 1976, when I came to a swim meet in Santa Clara, the host family I was with took me to the Big Basin State Park in the
ah,
Santa Cruz Mountains, where there's an
okay,
old growth redwood forest, and I was just blown away. We don't have trees like that in Florida.
yeah,
350-foot tall trees that are 1,500 years old. It's just like it was so. I've always been I've been in love with coast redwood trees since that time.
yeah,
1970, that was 1977. 1977 actually was, yeah.
okay.
In a
So
few years.
when people think about this, it apparently you shift careers, but actually it was all in this sort of, I wouldn't say life plan, but it dovetailed quite well.
I think yeah, it's interesting because when I left public accounting and I worked for a vineyard company for 3 years, they did vineyards and real estate, and I did what's called real estate entitlement work, which is helping to change, let's say, the zoning of a particular parcel. And I did that work for 3 years. I had no experience. I didn't even know what it meant. Land entitlement, real estate
Yeah.
entitlement, and um, but then when I left that company after 3 years and started where I work now, that entitlement work was really so crucial to what I did starting. I started this job 20 years ago, so
Yeah.
that we started the Napa Valley Reserve Winery 20 years ago. But for the first 2 years, I was doing entitlements, and
Oh, okay.
what it really came around to, Steve, is it came back to relationships. Even the relationships I had built while I was a CPA in Napa transferred well over to my entitlement work for the next 3 years, and those relationships transferred over into this position. So, and even today, those relationships that were started in the mid '90s, I'm working with one of our county supervisors here, and she and I worked together in the mid '90s when I was a CPA and she was an attorney. So
Okay.
really, in the end, for me, I see the weaving. If you say, well, where have you seen God's hand? And I would say, I've seen God's hand in the interweaving of those relationships that
Yeah.
were started a long time ago.
Got it.
So, and to see them come full circle and be so useful, and working really closely with her now because of all the fire damage at the resort. And it's just amazing how these things, I don't take any of those things for granted. And I don't believe in luck. I
Yeah.
think it is a master plan for our life.
Yeah. And I do see firsthand how your relationships are really deep and long lasting because I was with you in various countries around the world, from Canada to Australia and many other places. And you'd walk and people would say, "Hey, Paul, And I mean, they may have not seen you in a year or 10 years or whatever. And they could have been a fan, they could have been an official, they could have been a fellow swimmer. And you just jump in right away. It's like you had just met them yesterday. And it's very impressive.
No, thanks. Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I believe we're walk the planet to, to love God and love each other. And I
Yeah.
think that's really our calling each day.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how you get any better than that to end, but Paul, it's been remarkable as always.
Uh,
You're a great competitor. You were a great teammate, although I was never your teammate, but I've heard about that. All your
we work
coaching.
together as coaches. Yeah.
Yeah. And I heard from your coaches how easy you were coachable.
Mm.
And you've already obviously shared your wisdom with the team, and it's great to see you giving back to the community and planet Earth.
Yeah. Well, I think again, and there's a prayer in our church, that calls the planet Earth our island home. And it is our island home, right? So we need to take care of it. And so I feel like I'm hoping that this project will inspire others to do similar projects wherever they are. And there's a lot of opportunity, I believe, to do projects like this around the world using
Um,
effluent to grow forest and then to create a timber crop and also for carbon sequestration, I think, and oxygen production, right? And so there's so many benefits to creating forest, and I think some of these programs like the Trillion Tree Project and things like that are awesome programs. So we're going to do our little part here in St. Helena, I think.
Got it. And if people want to learn more about what you do, is there a website? Is there a?
Not yet, not yet. They'd have to. We're waiting to see. Hopefully, we'll be before the city council soon for approval.
Okay.
But there's not a website yet, so we're taking baby steps along the
Got it.
way. I just keep taking care of the trees we have, and then,
Uh-huh.
but we will have one once this gets approved and we ramp up to a much bigger project. So
Okay.
I'll let you know.
All right. Thank you very much, Paul. It's always great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, Steve. Good to see you.
Thank you.